And let's go to Sunday Night Football now with the Eagles and the Dolphins. And I know we have a move in the betting market recently for this game on Sunday night. And we have injury news as it concerns Eagles wide receiver Devontae Smith. Does not practice today on Wednesday with a hamstring injury. So no practice for Devontae Smith. And look, you got him in fantasy, which I do in a couple leagues. You don't want to see hamstring injury associated with a wide receiver. That is extremely problematic in my opinion. Now maybe he practices tomorrow or Friday, but not great. As Joe Girardi would say, it's not what you want. What do we have here, Ken, right now in the market with the Eagles and the Dolphins?
This might be extremely problematic to the two bets I wanted to make in this game, as we have to wait for injury. We were already waiting for injury reports, like is Lane Johnson going to play? Some of the other Eagles defensive players, Jalen Carter going to play? Is Darius Slay going to play? And now it's always Devontae Smith going to play. What a wonderful question to ask when you like the Eagles and the over, and this injury news comes out. Despite that, and that injury news came down less than 20 minutes ago. About an hour ago, some Eagles money hit the market in this game, which I just thought was kind of interesting. It had been kind of one-way traffic on Miami. We were kind of in 2, but went down to 1.5 and 1. And you could see that there was some interest in Miami early in the week. And just in the last hour, really, before the Devontae Smith injury news came out, the Eagles went to 2.5 and even 2.5, minus 15 in some places, basically everywhere. And, not the most significant move because we're not on the key number of 3 yet, but it implies that maybe if the Eagles get a good injury report, maybe we hit 3 in this game, and maybe we hit 3 juice to Philadelphia if it's a really good injury report and they get Lane Johnson, they get Devontae Smith, and they get some of their defensive players back. So thought that was interesting. While that was happening, the under has actually gotten bet in a couple places on this game. So opened kind of between 52 and 52.5. I see a lot of 51.5s. I see a 51 even on the board. So movement on the side, on the side that I like, even though there's an injury, and then movement on the under, which is kind of interesting as well. Game of the week, and I think we're going to have a lot more movement probably this week as we get these injury reports.
All right, Eric. Let's get to the games this weekend. And let's start with the game of the weekend. We've been asking all our guests about it today. Fascinated to get your take here on the Eagles and the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. Philly's a 2.5-point home favorite, Eric. The total is 52. We know that Devontae Smith didn't practice today for Philadelphia. Hamstring injury, which, obviously if he's not going to play in the game, it probably changes everyone's handicap. But it's still early in the week, so we'll wait for Thursday and Friday in the news on Devontae Smith. What is your handicap at this point in the week right now for the Eagles and the Dolphins? Anything you feel good about?
Yeah, I don't have really a bettable opinion on this. I make the game 1.5, 2. I do think the total's a little bit high. I think that the place where the Dolphins have really killed teams is at playing against teams that can't get a pass rush, that are kind of struggling at the line of scrimmage, especially defensively. And that's just simply not who the Eagles are. I know, we need to see, make sure that Jalen Carter is alive, as well for this game and everything. But I think that changes the complexion of it. And Tua is one of those guys that is really good when he has a platform and not quite as good when he doesn't. So I think it's weird because this is just a really hard game, because I've also been on the side, and you guys know this, I'm not really that bought into the Eagles offense. I'm not really that bought into Jalen Hurts, and in year 3 of being the starter there, I think he's taken a step back, and we saw it against the Jets with the 3 interceptions the other day. It's a tough one for me. I do think this game is going to be lower scoring though than the market suggests.
Eric, you referenced Tua there and Jalen Hurts obviously matching up in this game. We'll do awards tomorrow on the show, but we had ESPN is going to do these quarter poll, not straw polls, because I don't think these people vote for the award, but they poll 20 of their writers or something for who's going to win most valuable player this year. And Tua is, as you can imagine, it makes sense, he's the leading passer in the league, in the lead right now for most valuable player, according to that poll. And he and Patrick Mahomes have basically the same price, a little more than 3-1 most places to win most valuable player. You referenced Hurts. Maybe he's taken a step back. Lamar Jackson hasn't been great statistically so far this year. Josh Allen, against the Giants rather on Sunday night, that wasn't great. Herbert lost Monday night. Burrow's already got a couple losses. You go kind of down through the list and you're like, man, I don't know about it. Is it as simple as when we get to the end of the year, you think Tua is going to win MVP, or you think it could get a little crazy?
No, I don't think it's tough. I remember last year I was on my Chiefs podcast, the Red, Gold, and Bold show, and I was saying at the time Jalen Hurts was minus 150 to win the MVP after Patrick threw the 3 interceptions against the Denver Broncos that weekend, right? And you're like, it gets weird, right? I think right now it's a good bet to look at who you think is going to lead the league in EPA per pass attempt. That generally speaking is who ends up being or EPA per pass play, which would include Lamar in 2019. And right now, that player is actually Josh Allen. And so at 13-2, depending upon where you look, I'm just looking at one book right now. I think that's my favorite play is Josh Allen at 13-2. I know that they have difficulties at wide receiver beneath Diggs, and I know he gets banged up a little bit. But for my money, I think that even in the games where they look weird offensively, he still makes that throw to that tight end that I've never heard of, across his body that wows us, right? And he has, a lot of the same stuff Patrick does, but Patrick, they traded for McCole Hardman today to shore up that receiving core. I think it's going to take more time than Patrick Mahomes maybe has for that offense to get him an MVP award. I think it's Josh Allen to me as the most bettable player at this number.
Baldy, let's go to Sunday night. I'm really excited to talk to you about this game and get your analysis for it. As the Eagles host the Dolphins, Jalen Hurts, like an uncharacteristic 3-interception game for him as the Eagles lose to the Jets on Sunday. Miami keeps on rolling, albeit against lesser competition, rolling it up on Bryce Young and the Panthers. The Eagles about a 2-point home favorite on Sunday night. The total in the game is 52, so kind of like a two-parter here. Like, who do you think wins the game, Eagles and Dolphins? And do you think this is going to be a really high-scoring game or lower-scoring game? Like, how do you see it playing out? Who wins on Sunday night?
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, Nick. I think the Eagles will come out on top. And I think because the matchup is just way different than what Miami saw a week ago against Carolina. I just think the Eagles up front, especially if Jalen Carter plays, and I believe he'll play, and if Lane Johnson's back in the lineup, I think he'll be back in the lineup. I think when those guys get back, I think the Eagles are the best team in the trenches in the league. And I think that makes a difference. Although watching Mike McDaniel and this offense, like the way y'all have, they're fun to watch, and there's a ton of play action and misdirection. And, it can get you all tangled up. But ultimately, the way you beat all of that is just physically just whipping people at the line of scrimmage. Eventually, I think Hassan Reddick and Carter and those guys, I think their defensive front is going to prevent Miami from doing a lot of things that they did last week and have done in various weeks. But I think the Eagles get back on track. I think they run the ball well against the Dolphins. They got away from that last week. And I think because they're better in the trenches, I like the Eagles to win the game.
Just because you brought it up, and I think you're kind of half joking, but no, really. Do you still think Caleb Williams is the for sure number one pick in the NFL draft? The betting market still does. A lot of people still do. Do you think that? You're in Carolina, so maybe you're Drake May. You're drinking the Kool-Aid anyway. But what do you think? We're going to talk about it later in the show.
So Brady Quinn, actually, we did a Pick Six pod today with Brady Quinn and Leisure Doosable, and Brady said that he knows people. It was sort of referring to like NFL people, right? Who have Dre above Caleb Williams on their board. And one thing to really watch with Drake May, Heisman futures, I'm not sure exactly what he is or what the number one overall pick odds are, but Carolina's undefeated. They have a really easy schedule. They close at Clemson, at NC State, and we have good defense. We have good defense, and they do too. But certainly down years for us offensively, and Clemson just sort of erratic. So it's not impossible they run the table and Drake May gets Heisman love. The biggest difference to me over the last 2 weeks has been the return of Tez Walker from that NCAA waiver and what he provides Drake May in terms of very similar explosive underneath slot type of work like Josh Downs did. And I think Drake May was really missing that from this season early on. And Josh Downs has been good for Indianapolis. And so, I think it's possible that Drake May is the number one overall pick. I don't know that it's really, are we sure that the Bears won't just draft an offensive lineman and Marvin Harrison Jr. or trade one of the picks if they end up with the top two picks either? The Justin Fields thing really complicates it too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out coming up with where the Bears currently hold the first and second overall picks in the draft, Carolina's and, of course, their own. Lockmas, day 3. Not only today on Lockmas do you get 2 college football picks. 1, 2. Not only do you get 2 college football picks from Ken Barkley, but also you'll get a conversation on number 1 overall pick, Ken, in the NFL draft, where Caleb Willaims, depending on the sportsbooks that you're looking at, it's a pretty big favorite to go first overall, despite the Notre Dame performance this last weekend. Caleb, like I'm looking at the let me get the screen up here where Mike has minus 450 Caleb Williams, Drake May plus 340, JJ McCarthy of Michigan all the way down the board at 50-1. It is worth noting, Michael Penix, the Heisman favorite, is 35-1. Quinn Ewers of Texas is 30-1. Ken, what are your observations right now, and any bets or handicaps of betting the first overall pick in the NFL draft? Obviously, it's a long way out, but do you think anything that we can glean here?
I was texting a bunch of people about this market. I texted Tyler about this too. Tyler, like, more in the weeds on the draft content usually than I am. And people will be like, oh, like, overreacting to the stories about Caleb Williams' dad, and, like, that he's not going to turn pro if the team that he gets the number one pick he doesn't like. They've requested an ownership stake in the team, like all the stories that are coming out about him. Those don't really bother me, like the actual story themselves, like about what they're asking for or anything. Just that, like, there could be a lot more of this. And that's bad if you're an owner that's like trying to figure out what quarterback like you want your team, like a franchise cornerstone player. Yeah, like it has to be like a tiny part of giving you a little bit of pause. And only for this reason, if it was Caleb Williams and like Marvin Harrison Jr. and some linemen, then like it's kind of who cares, because like they're going to take Caleb Williams. Like if it's a quarterback and there's no other quarterbacks, then like, or one quarterback's way better than the others, then all this other stuff, all this noise, how Caleb looks the rest of the season, like it's not going to matter because he's the quarterback and there aren't any other ones. Like somebody will talk themselves into it, but you have options this year. And like just reading a lot of the mock draft content already, and we had Brinson on the show, like Brady Quinn saying like he's talking to NFL people. They have Drake May ahead of Caleb right now. They have Drake May ahead of Caleb on the board. I would just remind people, this is almost like a DeMar Hamlin comeback player of the year thing. The first pick of the draft is not tomorrow. Just like comeback player of the year wasn't handed out like the day after Labor Day when DeMar Hamlin would have won. Like, yeah, Caleb Williams might be the number one pick like last week. He might have been the number one pick. But like you're trying to bet on like A, what's going to change in the future, and then B, like how different things might look, and also C, how little we have any idea who the actual number one pick's going to be sometimes when there are like viable options. If it was Caleb and he was just like Andrew Luck and there was no other quarterback, then like cool, whatever. That's not what this is. Like Drake May's a really, really viable option to be the first overall pick. Drake May might end up going undefeated this year. Well, Caleb Williams goes 8-4, and you were like, well, that shouldn't matter. Be like, I bet for some NFL team it's going to matter, and they're going to trick themselves, and I think they should take Drake May instead. Like, teams don't always do the right smart thing. When does that ever happen? Like, some owner can't get infatuated with another quarterback, by the way. JJ McCarthy, who's 50-1 to be the first quarterback selected. A couple mock drafts have him in the top 10 now. They go undefeated, win the national championship. Caleb Williams has all these sideshow stories going on. You think some owner's not like, hey, that guy's only 20 years old, and he just led a team to that. I want that guy. Like that guy's the prospect that I want. Just like consider him. If the market thinks it's like impossible, like they're 5-1s on Caleb on Drake May to go first overall. There's 50s on McCarthy. I started betting some of this stuff. I think I want both those guys. And I think going forward, I actually think those positions are going to improve. I'm not falling for the Caleb stories. It's less that, and it's more just like, I think this is a little more uncertain than people think right now, just because like we've been hyping Caleb Williams to a really large degree.